Check out FlipsideGaming.com for all your gaming needs. Use the promo code HEROES to save 10% on all orders over $10. Hey there, this is John from Heroes and Legends, and welcome to another edition of the Magic the Gathering Market Watch. And there's a lot happening again this week. The upcoming Innistrad sets, the new Commander builds, and the recent Modern format shakeup are all impacting card prices. Again, this week we're going to have a $2 threshold. We're not going to talk about any cards that are moving unless they're moving at least $2 up or down. And as we have been doing, we're going to skip anything that's being egregiously market manipulated. Quickly before we get started though, just a fast reminder, if you go to FlipsideGaming.com, you can use that Heroes promo code to save 10% on orders over $10. Currently, you can pick up Adventures in the Forgotten Realms products there, or a number of other things on their website. Remember, if your order is over $100 or it consists only of singles, shipping will be free in the United States. And whenever you use the promo code, it does support the channel, which is always appreciated, so thank you. And without any further ado, let's get into it. We're going to begin, as we always do, with the Standard Legal Spotlight. This is where we look at the cards that are Standard Legal that are moving the most this week, beginning with one card that is going down in value. We have Brazen Borrower. Now, this is the copy from the list that's going down $10.51 to $39. This was only on the list during Zendikar Rising, and it has become artificially inflated recently. It's been climbing. This week we see a little bit of a price adjustment. This does see play, though. In Standard, it's in Prismari Midrange and more. It is rotating out this fall, but it does show up in a lot of other places too. Pioneer is at Phoenix and more there. Modern, this is in Crashing Footfalls. Living End, many times is at Tempo and more. Also gets a little Legacy play, and it has been seeing some additional Commander play now in Xanathar Guild Kingpin, Volo Guide to Monsters, and Grazilax the Lithid Scholar. First card going up in value is Omnith Locus of Creation, up $276 to $10.99, and even though you don't see this a lot in Standard, it does show up in many other places. Pioneer, this is in Niv to Light, 4-color Ascendancy, and more. Modern, though, is one of the reasons it's moving like it is this week. This is in 5-color Elementals, and that deck has been very popular and very effective in the format. This is in other decks there too, like Scape Shift, 4-color Control, Niv to Light, and more. Additionally, this is a highly played commander in that format, and can be found in the 99 of some builds too. And beyond all of that, Innistrad Midnight Hunt has a card that was already previewed, that could make this card better, at least in Commander if nowhere else. And that card is Ren in 7. This is not the last time we're going to be talking about this card today. And the last card in this section is Goldspan Dragon. This goes up $3.41 this week to $44.13. First off, yes, this is a good Standard card. So he's playing a few different decks there. Prismari Midrange, Jeskai Control, Rakdos or Grixis Treasure, Pioneer, this is in Izzet Dragons. Also, this is seeing a lot more Commander play now. It's a good upgrade to Draconic Rage, one of the new Adventures in the Forgotten Realms Commander decks, and I've also seen people using this in fresh builds around cards from that deck. Cards like Wolfgar of Icewind Dale or Vrondis Rage of Ancients. This is also a good upgrade to another one of the new Commander decks, and that's Planar Portal. I've seen this also in fresh builds around Prosper Tomebound from there. Additionally, of course, this is a dragon, and as you know, Adventures in the Forgotten Realms really did push the dragon tribe. And because of that, you are seeing more dragons being played in Commander right now. This is showing up in builds like the Dragon or the new Tiamat build. Plus, I've seen this in Klein Reclusive Painter decks as well in the format. Beyond all of that, this also got a Command Zone podcast mention this week, which could have brought some more attention to it as well. That brings us to the Pioneer Legal Spotlight. All the cards in this section this week are going up, so let's check them out. Relentless Dead up $3.02 to $15. This is currently a good card for Commander Zombie builds of all kinds, and it is seeing some more play around a new card. That is Acererak the Archlich. The reason, though, this is moving as much as it is right now ties into the fact that we have not one, but two Innistrad sets coming this fall. You know there's going to be zombie cards there. Also, one of the Commander decks that's coming out with Innistrad Midnight Hunt is called Undead Unleashed. And there was a theory on an MTG message board this week speculating that that small piece of the package that they did show of that product has a face of a character on it that could be an Undead Gisa. Beyond all that, we saw a recent preview card that will be pushing zombies in the future as well. This is another card from Innistrad Midnight Hunt. This time the card is Champion of the Perished. Next we have Advera Hellkite. The Ravnica Allegiance Rakdos Guild Kit copy is up $253 to $16.18. The Commander 2017 copy goes up $302 this week to $17.09. This is another dragon that you might find in Commander builds like the Dragon, or many new ones like Tiamat, Vrondis Rage of Ancients, Clouth Unrivaled Ancient, Wolfgar of Icewind Dale, Also, of course, a good upgrade to the Draconic Rage commander deck. Urborg Tomb of Yawgmoth, that copy from the list is going up 317 this week to 32.98, and this did join the list with Modern Horizons 2. It also was reprinted recently in Time Spiral Remastered. In spite of these recent printings, however, this card has been hot ever since Cabal Coffers was reprinted in Modern Horizons 2. Those two cards are played together very often in commander decks. This, however, does see play in other places too. Pioneer, it's in Rakdos Pyromancer and more. Modern, it's in Eldrazi Tron, Yawgmoth Sacrifice, Orzhov Stoneblade, and more there. Also gets Legacy play, and like I was alluding to, it is a big commander card in many decks. Now seeing some more play in Xanathar Guild Kingpin. Also, I have seen some players getting this as an upgrade to Planar Portal, or just putting this in a fresh build around Prosper Tomebound. Dragonlord Dromoka from Dragons of Tarkir. This is up again this week, up 332 to 43.35. This has been added to the list with Adventures in the Forgotten Realms. That particular copy is pretty stable this week. This one's still climbing though. This is another powerful dragon, seeing more commander play in builds like the Ur-Dragon, and it's in new decks around 2 cards from Adventures in the Forgotten Realms. The main one, of course, is Tiamat, and to a lesser degree, Drizzt Do'Urden. Revel in Riches, this also remains hot. Ixalan up 347 to 1734, the Mystery Booster copy up 552 to $19. Great upgrade to Planar Portal. And of course, another card that people are putting in fresh decks around Prosper Tomebound. Additionally, this is also getting more commander play in Kalain Reclusive Painter. And that quickly brings us to the Modern Legal Spotlight. Of course, there's still a lot of turbulence when it comes to Modern cards because of this recent meta shakeup that occurred when Modern Horizons 2 came out. First, let's look at some cards going down in value. Urza, Lord High Artificer, goes down this week, $5.66 to $60.59. This did get a boost recently as players were trying this out in Urza's Kitchen builds in the new Modern meta. That deck is performing just fine, but it's not one of the big dominating decks that some people thought it would be, and now we are starting to see a little bit of retraction here. Urza decks can still show up in the format too, but to a lesser degree now. Legacy, however, is still very strong, and Karn Echoes and more there. Sees vintage play as well, but it is a very popular commander, also in the 99 of builds there too. Emrakul, the Aeon's Torn from Ultimate Masters, goes down $5.89 this week to $47.90. This card was jumping up in value recently. It has been seeing more play in Modern, but this week it does retract back down some. Now you will find this in decks there like 4-Color Control, Glimpse Cascade, sometimes there's this Kitchen and more. Many times now this will come out of the sideboard against a mill deck in the format. Those have been gaining some momentum. In Legacy, this is in Doomsday, Sneak and Show, Omnitel, Mono Green, Cloudpost, and Enchantress. Defense Grid from 8th edition goes down $6.75 to $20. Now this card did get hot for a couple weeks while some players were trying to figure out what exactly they wanted in their sideboards in this new Modern meta. Recently though, we're not seeing this card show up all that often. However, you do see this in Legacy, the Epic Storm, Sneak and Show, and more. I have seen some players putting this in the Planar Portal commander deck, and also picking this up for some fresh builds around Prosper Tomebound. Cabal Coffers from Plane Chase, this goes down $9.51 this week to $54.99. Of course, this has been soft ever since it got reprinted in Modern Horizons 2. That did make it Modern legal, but I have not really seen it doing a whole lot there. It is a great commander card like I alluded to earlier, getting more play now in Xanathar Guild Kingpin, Acererak the Archlich, Prosper Tomebound, and it's a good upgrade to Planar Portal as well. Blackcleave Cliffs from Scars of Mirrodin. This is the last card going down in value, and it descends $10.36 to $46.72. This is retracting after some pretty huge recent spikes. And of course, with a metagame shakeup, you usually see 2 types of cards get hot. Lands, as well as sideboard cards. The reason for that is you have a lot of players competing with each other because they need these type of cards for various different builds. During that mad scramble, this card got super hot for a while. Now we see it coming back down to earth, but it's still seeing play in the Modern format. You're going to find this in various Lurrus builds as well as other Jund builds, Mardu Stoneblade, and it is a solid commander mana based card as well. Happens to share color identity with Prosper Tomebound and that Planar Portal commander deck. Cavern of Souls from Modern Masters 2017 is the first card going up in this section today. It increases $5.39 this week to $99.97. And this is on the list currently. It joined with Keldheim, but nevertheless, this copy is still going up in value. In Modern, you're going to find it in 5-color elementals, maybe one of the key reasons this is increasing. Also in other decks there, Amulet Titan, Eldrazi Tron, Humans, Goblins, Spirits, Merfolk, Elves. Plus it gets Legacy play, a little Vintage play. There were 4 copies of this in that Minotaur Legacy deck that was hot about a week ago. Haven't seen that deck do a lot this week, but it's still early, of course. Plus, beyond all of that, I think some players are looking ahead to these new Innistrad sets. It does appear that we're going to see some different tribal synergies coming out of these sets. We already talked about zombies. Crimson Vow, I'm sure, is going to bring vampires. I would be very surprised not to see a lot of wolves and werewolves in Midnight Hunt. We also learned the names of the commander decks that are coming out with these products, and it sounds like at least 3 of them have some pretty strong tribal synergy potentially. We have Midnight Hunt giving us Undead Unleashed like we mentioned earlier, also Coven counters. Crimson Vow is going to give us Spirit Squadron and Vampiric Bloodline. Next we have Blood Moon, a card that's been seeing more play in this new modern meta. It's in Izzet Tempo, Crashing Footfalls, Blitz, Girl Midrange, Enchantress, Mono Red Aggro, and more. This also continues to see a lot of Legacy play, seeing more Commander play now and some Inferno of the Star Mounts decks as well. Chronicles is up $4.95 this week to $29.99. The 9th edition copy goes up $9.31 to $34.98. Polluted Delta from Onslaught, this goes up $14.02 this week to $127.49. These Onslaught fetch lands are starting to heat up again. Originally, they got hot when Time Spiral Remastered came out. That got people interested in the retro frames again. Then they started to cool off, but Modern Horizons 2 came out. You had the meta shake up in Modern. A lot of players needed to get their mana base together, and they started to move up again. They've been kind of up and down, but as you can see by this card as well as some others we're going to see later in the video, they do appear to be trending up again. For the most part, fetch lands are always going to see play in Modern, Legacy, Vintage, and Commander decks old and new. This one happens to fetch islands and swamps, and the mill deck in Modern is Dimir Colors. Probably not a coincidence. Chalice of the Void from Modern Masters. It goes up $15.70 to $83.98. This has been hot for 3 weeks in a row. As a matter of fact, the last 3 weeks we have seen all copies of this card going up. This week, though, the 4th week, only this one is going up in value. The others are stabilizing finally. Why has the card become so hot? Well, I mentioned earlier, people are scrambling for those modern sideboard cards, and this is a very popular option. Also sees play in Legacy, Vintage, and a little Commander play. Very similar example here with Engineered Explosives. The 5th Dawn copy is jumping up this week, $24.42 to $61.32. Other copies that have been hot are stabilizing. And again, this is another example of a solid sideboard card in the modern meta. Plus this gets a good amount of Legacy play and a little Commander play. Another Onslaught fetch land going up in value. Flooded Strand jumps up $26.69 this week to $120. And the last card in this section is Wrenn and 6. Modern Horizons up $13.66 to $128. The copy from the list, and that did leave after Kjell time, it goes up $44.44 to $192.36 in theory. Although that price point is kind of inflated right now, I don't really think anybody's paying that for that particular copy of the card. But because it is a little harder to find, reasonably priced copies have disappeared in the marketplace, causing some inflation. So with that being said, why is this card going up in value? Well, first off, it is in a lot of modern builds, 4-color control builds, Scapeshift, Jund builds, Nib to Light, sometimes 5-color elementals and more. It is banned in Legacy, but it does get some Vintage and Commander play. I do think the reason it's been moving the way it has been, though, is because of a preview card from Innistrad Midnight Hunt, and it is a card we saw earlier, Wrenn and 7. Many are speculating that Wrenn and 7 will lead to this getting more play, even if it's just in Commander. And that's why you're seeing the prices jump. And that takes us to the Vintage Spotlight. This is where we look at cards that see play in Legacy, Vintage, 93, 94, or cards that are just popular among collectors. There's still market manipulation happening out there in the world of Vintage cards, so be careful. Although there's far less of that now compared to a few weeks back. I still want to remind you, though, that when it comes to especially the older Vintage cards, a lot of players are getting those cards graded. So when you look at those price tracking websites, you're seeing a price usually that is somewhere between a high-grade raw copy and a high-grade graded copy. In this section of the video, the types of prices you're going to see on the screen are very reminiscent of what you might find on one of those price tracking websites. However, if I do see something different from the true sales that have been occurring, I will point that out. You're going to see a lot of revised dual lands again this week. Plateau is going up $6.56 to $349.98. Scrubland is up $7.42 to $379.99. Personal Incarnation from Unlimited goes up $10.32 to $43.72. Mana Short from Unlimited goes up $10.60 to $47.63. Mox Diamond from Stronghold up $11.52 to $631.51. You'll find this one in Legacy Lands, Knight of the Reliquary, and more. You also see this in a lot of different Commander builds, and some people are putting this in a new one, Xanathar Guild Kingpin. Savannah from Revised goes up $14.83 this week to $385. Tundra from Revised up 1714 to $569.99. Abu Jafar from Arabian Nights is up $20.44 to $85.67. Bayou from Revised up $20.86 to $562.98. Northern Paladin from Unlimited up $27.39 to $119.95. Although if I pulled this price at the same time this week as I did last week, I think this one would have fallen off. It has been pretty stable for the most part. Winter Orb from Unlimited up $28.87 to $212.63. Mishra's Factory, this is the Antiquities Fall variant that you see on the screen, up $31.47 to $198.96. Underground Sea from Unlimited, this goes up $276 this week to $1,924.99. Now, I haven't seen high-grade graded copies sell for a while. High-grade raw copies can hit about $1,700 currently, so I would expect a future graded copy sale to pass this. And finally, for the section, we have Time Twister from Unlimited. In theory, going up $1,850.50 to $11,149.50. Is that for real? Well, high-grade raw copies can reach about $6,000. High-grade graded can hit about $10,900. So it is close if you're talking about high-grade graded, but I think as an average, that price is a little inflated right now. That takes us to the best of the rest. Now, I usually call this the Commander Spotlight, but because Modern has been playing a bigger role recently, I wanted to broaden the cards we look at in this section, at least for the time being. So I did change the title, but there's still a lot of cards here. In fact, most of the cards are moving, at least in some part, because of Commander. First, we have Stolen Strategy up $2 to $18.94. This has seen increased Commander play. It's a good upgrade to Planar Portal. Also, it's in some fresh builds around Prosper Tomebound. Sylvan Tutor from Portal up $202 to $82.99. This does see a little Commander play. It is a tutor after all. Rafika the Many from Shards of Alara. This is a fairly popular Commander card. I have seen some players using this to upgrade Aura of Courage, another one of those new Commander decks. And it's in some fresh builds around a card from there, Galia, Kindler of Hope. It goes up $203 this week to $14.50. Mana Crypt, the Mystery Booster copy. Great vintage card, great Commander card. It's in many builds, old and new. This one's going up $209 to $152.30. Darkness from Time Spiral. This is in some modern mill decks. Plus, it gets a little Commander play. It goes up $214 this week to $29.95. Knights of Thorn. This goes up $215 to $17.99. So reserve list cards from the Dark continue to move up to some degree. They're not nearly as hot as they were a few months back, but you can still see little jumps like this from time to time. This does see a tad bit of Commander play, but this is really something that collectors are more interested in finding in high grade more than anything. Sarah's Sanctum, small percentage increase here, but it is going up $215 to $359.99. This is in Legacy Enchantress. It's also seeing more Commander play now in Galia, Kindler of Hope. It's expensive, but it's also a good upgrade to Aura of Courage if you happen to have a copy. Bitter Blossom from Modern Masters 2015. In Legacy, you'll find this in Orzhov Stoneblade. This also gets a good amount of Commander play. This copy's up $226 to $52.78. Teferi's Protection from Mystery Booster. This goes up $235 to $29.99 this week. This is a huge Commander card in many builds, old and new. Now, this copy is still going up in value, even though it was recently reprinted as a Strixhaven Mystical Archive card, and it was in a recent Secret Lair, Extra Life 2020. Royal Assassin from Revised is up $242 to $14.90. Now, this does get some Commander play. I have seen some players putting this in Planar Portal, or adding it to a fresh Prosper Tomebound build. Burgeoning from Conspiracy Take the Crown. This goes up $242 to $26.94 this week. Solid Commander card currently, but this is getting a boost from that Renin 7 preview. Fork from Revised up $243 to $79.84. Good Commander card, seeing a little more play now in Inferno of the Star Mounts decks. Surgical Extraction from Modern Masters 2015. It goes up $245 to $35.75. This does get a little Modern sideboard play, but the reason it's this hot right now is because it's in the main decks of the mill builds there. Additionally, this gets a ton of Legacy and Vintage play, and a tad bit of Commander play too. Sensei's Divining Top from Champions of Kamigawa. This goes up $247 this week to $59.50. This gets a good amount of play in Vintage and Commander. It's especially popular in Commander, where you will find this in many builds, old and new. Chrome Mox. This is the copy from Double Masters. It goes up $250 this week to $63.49. In Legacy, this is in the Epic Storm, Mono Red Aggro, Karn Echoes, and more. This is another highly played Commander card, though, in builds old and new. Alpine Moon up $256 to $984. Now, this is a very big Pioneer sideboard card, but the reason it's as hot as it is right now is because it's seeing a lot of Modern sideboard play. It is good against Urza Saga, which seems to pop up everywhere nowadays, and good against other utility lands you're going to find there too. You can even see this card in Legacy, Vintage, and occasionally Commander. But the final thing that could have pushed this card over the top so it made the video today is actually a MTG parody music video by MTG Remy on YouTube. This card, as well as some others, were featured. It was called Walking on the Moon. Kroll Tutor, this is the copy from the list that did leave after Kjell time. It goes up $257 this week to $39.80. It is a tutor, so you know it's going to see some Commander play. Death Coil Worm, this goes up $258 to $11.83. This has yet to be reprinted. It's a little dry this week online. Only gets a tad bit of Commander play, though. Elvish Champion from 10th edition up $259 to $32.18. I have noticed in this week's video, and you're going to see more of it later, there's a number of cards where just one copy of the card is trending this week. The others are pretty stable, and that happens when a particular copy dries up in the online marketplace for the week. Not really an unusual thing, but it does feel more widespread this week compared to other weeks. Anyway, this is a great option for Commander Elf builds. Commander Greven Elvek, this goes up $261 to $15.88. This does get a little Commander play. It recently had the Phyrexian creature type added to it. And again, this is another reserve list card that some collectors may be interested in picking up in high grade. Vampiric Tutor from 6th edition, this goes up $271 to $71.99. You'll find this in Vintage Doomsday, Paradoxical Outcome, and more. It is a highly played Commander Tutor, however, in builds old and new. Fierce Guardianship, this goes up $294 to $44.63. Another huge Commander card you're going to find in multiple builds old and new. Kozilek Butcher of Truth from Modern Masters 2015. It goes up $295 to $72.95. This is a good sideboard option in Modern against the mill deck, but this also can see main deck play sometimes in the format in Glimpse Cascade or Tron, for example. Legacy, many times this is in Cloudpost builds, and it is a fairly popular Commander card in a lot of different builds. Virtus the Veiled from the list. Now, this was only there during Zendikar Rising, and it's not a super popular card, so you're not going to see a lot of people trying to sell it online. Because of that, there was some really strong market manipulation behind this card for a while. Don't know if it was just an accidental thing or a joke or what, but this card inflated to unreal values. Now this week it's going up $3 to $7.98. I still don't think that's an accurate price. You can get the Battle Bond copy obviously much cheaper. When it comes to gameplay, this does see some Commander play. Oboro Palace in the Clouds up $305 to $78.82. In Modern, you're going to find this in the mill deck. That's the main reason it's going up now. Sometimes it's in Merfolk there too. Also see some Commander play. Elvish Piper, the 9th edition copy, a little dry online this week. It goes up $306 to $14.99. This has seen some additional Commander play though in Tiamat builds. Tarmogoyf, the copy from the list, only there during Modern Horizons 2. It goes up $307 to $40. This version of the card was really cheap compared to the others recently, so I think this is just a price adjustment. In Modern, you'll find this in Jund builds, Death Shadow builds, The Rock, and more. This also sees a little Legacy and some Vintage play. Occasionally, it does make it into a Commander deck, too. Omen of Fire, this goes up $309 to $8. This might see some rare Commander play from time to time, but I think this is an example of a reserve list card that dried up online this week more than anything. Maybe the start of a buyout. Grave Pact, that 8th edition copy dried up online this week. It goes up $319 to $41.98. And it is a fairly popular Commander card in a lot of different builds. Brushland from 10th edition. These Ally Pain lands usually don't see play outside of Commander, but they are good mana-based cards there. This is in a lot of decks, again, old and new. It goes up $331 this week to $1366. Ancient Tomb, this is the original Tempest copy, up $333 to $61.75. In Legacy, this is Incarn Echo, Sneak and Show, and more. In Vintage, Golos Stacks, Ravager Shops. Plus, it's an extremely popular Commander land in a lot of decks, again, old and new. Coat of Arms, that 8th edition copy, a little dry online this week. It goes up $335 to $19.99. Now, this is a huge Commander tribal support card, especially good for tribes that don't have that much organic support. This is getting more play in Min Wily Illusionist builds currently in Commander. Keep an eye on this card, though, in the future as we get closer to those Innistrad sets and those Innistrad Commander decks coming out. Like I said, it looks like there's a number of tribes that will be getting support there. Dress Down is going up, $357 to $497. Now, this is starting to see play in Grixis Death Shadow builds in Modern, which is why it's moving up as much as it is right now. It is good, of course, with Death Shadow. In Legacy, you'll find this in Miracles builds, Jeskai Stoneblade. It's also in decks with Phyrexian Dreadnought, and of course, this is a good card with that one too. And additionally, this also gets some commander play. Nature's Cloak from Starter 1999. The Portal copy of this was hot for a while. Now this one's been heating up. It goes up $3.79 this week to $5.75. I know a lot of players were speculating on this card when Yavimaya Cradle of Growth was previewed from Modern Horizons 2, but I really haven't seen this show up in many decks since the card came out. Didgeridoo up $3.84 this week to $41.90. It jumped a lot last week, going up a little bit more this week. It does see some commander play in Sethron Herloon General, Neheb the Worthy. It is a good card to have in your collection since Wizards has been aggressively pushing various tribes over the last few years. But the reason it moved as much as it did was because 4 copies of this showed up in a Legacy Minotaur deck that was performing well in MTGO. Will that deck maintain? It didn't look quite as impressive this week, but time will tell. Uba Mask up $4.01 to $17.99. Another card a lot of players are picking up for the Planar Portal Commander deck, or others are just building fresh around Prosper Tomebound and want this. Plus, it's in some Oswald Fiddlebender decks in Commander as well. Here's another Onslaught Fetch land going up in value, Windswept Teeth. It's up $4.05 this week to $89.25. Exorcist, here's another reserve list card from the dark. This one's up $4.12 this week to $36.98. Can see a tad bit of commander play. Thawing Glaciers from Alliances. Now this reserve list card sees a little more commander play than the previous one. It's going up $4.28 to $42.48. Opalescence, another reserve list card. It's going up $4.29 to $59.95, but this one is good in enchantment heavy commander builds. Sign of the Ur-Dragon from Time Spiral, another dragon. It goes up $4.34 this week to $14.37. This is sometimes a commander for a dragon build. Other times you'll find it in the 99 of other builds like the Ur-Dragon or Tiamat. Flamekin Harbinger. Now this is another card that's in the Modern 5-color Elementals deck. That is why it's been spiking. Also gets some commander play too. Lorwyn goes up $3.22 to $15. Plane Chase up $4.43 to $18.50. Silver Queen, the Silver Lord that's on the reserve list. Now, this has been losing value recently. This week, though, it is jumping up a little bit, $4.80 to $3.88.49. Now, of course, many times you see this as a Sliver Commander or part of the 99 of a Sliver Tribal build there. Aggravated Assault, good upgrade to Draconic Rage, where I have seen some players putting this in fresh builds around Wolfgar of Icewind Dale. Plus, it has showed up in some Delina Wild Mage decks in Commander 2. Onslaught is up $3.07 this week to $28.72. Explorers of Ixalan up $5.05 to $28.73. Jeska's Will up $5.13 to $25.80. Now, this is in Legacy the Epic Storm sometimes, but it's known as a very big commander card more than anything. It's even getting more play now as an upgrade to Planar Portal or Draconic Rage, or in other cases, players are building fresh around cards from those decks. Prosper Tomebound or Wolfgar of Icewind Dale. Plus, additionally, this is in some other new commander builds from cards from the regular set, Inferno of Star Mounts and Kalain Reclusive Painter. Pathbreaker Ibex, this is the copy from Commander 2015 this week. It goes up $7.80 to $28.84. Another good upgrade to Draconic Rage. Also in fresh commander decks around, you guessed it, Wolfgar of Icewind Dale. And this is showing up in other new commander builds too, Volo Guide to Monsters and Old Gnawbone. I think you're starting to see where this is going. Grenzo Havoc Razor up $10.33 this week to $34. Good upgrade to Planar Portal or in fresh Prosper Tomebound builds. Also good in fresh builds around Karazika the Eye Tyrant. And that takes us to the premium spotlight. Again, there's a lot happening in the premium market. We can't possibly cover it all. Be careful if you're making purchases. There is market manipulation happening out there. Maybe not as much as we were seeing, but it's still going on. With that being said, though, every week I try to pick at least one card that is moving naturally with the market. Something that was moving because of gameplay or a card preview or some other piece of news. Not just the card that was bought out this week or dried up in the marketplace. I only have one to talk about today, but it is a good one. We saw this last week, Ren and 6, the foil copy from Modern Horizons. It goes up in theory $102.55 to $490. So much like the vintage section, here I'm showing you a price that is very similar to what you might find on a price tracking website. How does this stand up to actual sales? Well, I haven't seen any cards selling for this price. I have seen some high-grade raw copies selling for about $330, which is roughly $30 higher than last week. So the card is increasing in value. Now, I do think this high price point is due to the fact that reasonable copies have dried up, and also sellers are trying to stay ahead of this spike. The card's spiking heavily, they don't want to miss out, so they might put the card up for sale at a high price at times, but it doesn't mean they won't take a reasonable offer. However, that practice can skew data, so just keep that in mind. Now, if running 7 leads to this card seeing more play in at least Commander, if not other places, could this eventually get up to 490? Maybe, assuming we don't see like a foil reprint and like a secret layer or something between now and then. And that's going to do it for this edition of the Magic the Gathering Market Watch. If you're still here, thanks for sticking with me. As always, stay safe out there. Thanks for watching. Please remember to like and subscribe and have a great day. Hey, thanks for watching. This video is made possible through the generous support of viewers like you on Patreon. Check out the description below for links to our Patreon page as well as our Amazon affiliate store, where a small percentage of all sales will also help support the channel. Finally, if you haven't had a chance yet to subscribe, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any of the new videos on Heroes and Legends. Talk to you again soon and have a great day.